and welcome to the 5th episode of Tina Talks Keto. Thanks again to all of you who are watching and listening to my videos. Please remember to like them and subscribe. My channel and these videos are about my journey on a ketogenic way of eating, and also what I've learned along the way. My name is Tina Barkin, and for the past 26 months, I've been eating some form of a low-carb diet. In the beginning, I followed Dr. Atkins' plan in his 1972 book. I'm down about 60 pounds from when I started, and I'm at my goal weight. Ideally, I'd like to drop some more body fat, though. As we go together with my journey, I'll talk about what version of keto I started with, what I'm doing now, which is mostly ketovore, and what worked, what changed along the way, and what didn't work. Right up front, it's important to say that what you hear from me is my opinion. It's what worked or didn't work for me and me alone. The things I talk about in this video and any past or future videos are not any kind of medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything related to the medical field. So before you make any changes, please see your physician. In my previous episode, I talked about my first month dealing with a stall. In this episode, and in a few future episodes, I'm going to talk about the remaining months of my stall and how I managed to get through the stall without cheating, though I prefer to say by continuing to follow my plan. Specifically, in this episode, I'm going to talk about Facebook groups and how to best get them to help you. Success comes with community, and Facebook, especially if you find the right Facebook groups, are a great place to find community. By the way, I'm currently at a keto retreat in Tennessee, hosted by Rebecca Heichman. Her website is Tailored Keto Health, and the link is in the show notes. There's lots of valuable information on her site, including the dates for her next retreat in the spring. There's going to be some occasional background noise which I can't control, short of waiting to record this episode until I get back home. It's coming out late as it is, so I hope you will forgive the distractions. So, at the beginning of my stall, I joined a lot of Facebook groups and started asking questions. The answers were varied and sometimes useful and sometimes not. So I want to talk about what makes a good Facebook group and how to decide which groups to join and which groups perhaps are not right for you. To begin with, we have to talk about all the different versions of keto there are, because there is more than one Facebook group per version of keto. The overarching methodology for eating a keto way of life is following a low-carb lifestyle. However, even defining what is low-carb can be daunting. There are a few keto influencers who will tell you that 150 grams of carbs in a day is low carb. Many influencers will approve of under 50 grams of carbs, and a lot of them will say you need to stay under 20 grams. For what it's worth, I need to stay under 20 total grams of carbs to get any results, but not everyone needs to do that. So what are all the different versions of keto? To start, there's traditional keto, lazy keto, and dirty keto. Traditional keto tends to be high fat, moderate protein, and very low carb, and a very clean way of eating. Lazy keto restricts carbs to 10% or less of your daily intake of calories. There's no tracking of fats or proteins. Dirty keto is still low in carbs and high in fat, but its food sources are often not as nutritious. You can eat anything you want, including lots of processed foods and seed oils, as long as everything you eat fits in your macros. In case I haven't mentioned it, the three food groups, protein, fats, and carbohydrates, make up the three macros. Besides these versions of keto, there is a high protein and moderate fat version. There is also carnivore, where only meat is eaten. There are those that specify a 1-to-1 ratio of fats to protein. Recently, I was listening to a podcast where Kim Howerton was interviewing Siobhan Huggins, and they were talking about another version called Keto AF. Keto AF is short for animal foods and is a carnivorous diet where fat is prioritized. They were saying it was a great plan that could be used to break a long stall. I've included a link in the show notes to an article Siobhan Huggins wrote about Keto AF. Then, to add to the confusion, some people count net carbs and some count total carbs. There's even 2 different versions of net carbs. One only subtracts fiber, and the other subtracts fiber and sugar alcohols from the total carb count. Then some people track everything they eat and some don't. Dr. Atkins' food plan and Dr. Westman's plan, which are virtually identical, have a specific food list, and if you follow it, you are done. No macros, no tracking, and largely no net carbs. However, Dr. Atkins' 2002 book counts net carbs, but only by subtracting vegetables. If you are just beginning with a keto diet, you probably found out about it from a friend or relative. I'd recommend following whatever your friend is doing and whatever version that may be. Or maybe you're like me and tried Atkins a long time ago, and it made sense to try it again. Some keto influencers may disagree with me, but I believe that at the very beginning of your journey, any version is likely to work. If you've been eating a typical carb-loaded diet, just limiting carbs sets you up for good weight loss. As you move along, you'll start to learn what works best for you and begin to tweak your food choices. Once you've decided which keto plan you want to follow, you need support. It's very hard to do this on your own. You need to find a community of like-minded folks who are doing what you are doing. Facebook can be very helpful, but it can also be hurtful, so you need to find a group that has some controls in place. When you find a group that looks like it might be for you, read the rules. I think the better groups have more rules. If you think you will have trouble looking at pictures of foods that aren't on your plan, then pick a group that has a rule that doesn't allow food pictures. Also, pick a group with a rule that includes a mandate about being kind. Then, there are some groups that don't allow links. This is not a reason to not join the group, but you do need to try to remember which groups they are before you post a link to a YouTube video you just watched, or to a recipe you made last night. Your post will be deleted, and if you do it more than once, you may get kicked out. If you've decided to follow a food plan supported by a specific keto influencer or doctor, then absolutely join that group. One of my favorites is the Consistently Keto Lifestyle Support Group. This group helped me a lot through my 5-month stall, and continues to help me today. Another group that I follow is the Low Carb Support Group by Dr. Eric Westman. In any group run by a keto influencer or doctor, almost all of the members will be eating exactly what you are planning to eat and will be able to answer very specific questions. Beware, however, that some of these groups don't tolerate posts that discuss a different way of eating. Since I was following the food plan in Dr. Atkins' 1972 book, I initially joined groups favorable to Dr. Atkins. Over time, I've joined many more Facebook groups, but this can become confusing, so start with just a few and follow only one version of the keto way of eating. Let's move on to what happens at the Facebook group level if you've been in a stall. You've been trucking along with moderate or even great success, but now for the last 2 weeks you've stalled. Well, first of all, 2 weeks isn't a stall. If you post in your group that you've stalled for 2 weeks, you will get 1 million responses that you aren't in a stall. Some of those replies may even be terse or angry. I learned this the hard way. Generally, the accepted length of time where you can say you were in a stall, and folks will agree with you, is about 6 weeks. When I asked the question about my stall, the frustrating and typical answers were, "You must have lost inches. Your clothes are fitting better. Watch out for carb creep. If you aren't losing, you are eating too many carbs." None of these answers were helpful, and none of them applied to me. Members in Facebook groups who haven't endured a stall typically just don't get it. To get the most out of a Facebook group, ask some questions. It will start to feel more like a community providing support if you join in the conversation. And once you decide to post a question, provide some information. Don't say, "I'm in a stall, what can I do?" Some things to include are how long you've been eating keto. Which version of keto are you eating? How old are you? Whether you've lost any weight yet, or how much you've lost. There's a knack to learning how much to post. Too long and most people won't read it. Too short and you won't get useful replies. Next is how to decide if the reply is something you should act on. Remember that consistency usually is the right path, but you've been stalled, so consistency doesn't seem to be working. Look for posts that give you options but not absolutes. When someone says, "I did this and it worked, so you have to do it too," that's not necessarily the best for you. We are all different. A better answer would be, "I did this and it seemed to help my stall. I'm down about X pounds since I made this change." Remember, we don't ever know what actually ends a stall. It could be the change we made, or it could be that our body was finally ready to start to lose again, and the change we made had nothing to do with it. Another thing to look for is if an admin wrote the answer, or if an admin liked the answer. Chances are high that the answer will be beneficial. You shouldn't go from group to group randomly trying different things. You need to give your body a chance to understand what you are trying. So don't try something for a few days and give up. It typically takes at least a few weeks to find out if the change was right for you. And those few weeks may be frustrating. Some Facebook groups also have weekly volunteer Zoom meetings. If you joined a group that does that, it is really worthwhile to join these meetings. The value of community is strongest when you take advantage of everything the group offers. So the point of this video was to talk about one way that I survived my 5-month stall. Facebook was one of my lifelines. I asked many questions and received many answers. Not all were the right answers for me, but all provided a learning experience. Next time, I will talk about a different lifeline and how that helped me cope with the frustration that comes when it appears that what is supposed to be foolproof is not. Thanks for listening, and have an absolutely fantastic day.